Hey everyone, Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com, bringing you the second day of the 7th week of the Powerbuilding 2 template by Barbell Medicine. Today's focus is going to be the competition style bench press, where we'll be working up to a heavy single, followed by some pause squats with the SS yoke bar, and wrapping up with overhead press without a belt, and that is in the strict format. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we're getting through the warm-ups. I would like to go over how I like to set up for the bench press. I'll play some footage now, which hopefully we can sync up with how I like to set up. But what I will do is I'll start off by obviously lying back on the bench, but what I'll do is I'll squeeze my shoulder blades together and use the sides of the rack to push my shoulder blades in as far as possible. And then I'll use that to anchor myself. And then I will bring up my butt on the bench, try and get that good solid arch in the back, and then I'll plant my feet and get my feet in a good position. As I've explained in previous videos, I personally, for me, doesn't really work very well if my feet are tucked under me, so you'll notice they're a bit out, so that way I can push my heels into the ground and drive my traps into the bar. Drive my traps into the pad. And then I will like to use my pinky finger as the index, and I'll index that onto the knurling ring on the powerlifting bar. That way I know each and every time I'm grabbing the same width grip, so there's consistency there. I'll take a deep breath in and unrack the bar and start repping out the sets, but that's the basic gist of how I like to set up for a bench press. A couple of things on there as well. I like to squeeze my back a bit more, so during the lift I'll be driving my feet down so that my traps, I try and put as much trap as possible into the pad. That's kind of the image I'm thinking of. And then I'll also try to squeeze my shoulder blades down so that they try to put my armpits in my back pocket again, that kind of master cue there. That way it keeps shoulder stability and keeps that solid base to press off of. During the press, I'll also squeeze the bar as hard as possible. Obviously that'll happen as the weight gets harder, but something to think about is to really squeeze down and grip down on that barbell, because it seems to activate a little bit more muscle for some reason. It seems to make the weight feel a little lighter than it actually is. Just a couple of things to think about. Hopefully that helps you with your bench press. It has taken me a while to come up with this, to perfect the bench press, and there's definitely a lot I need to work on, and it's still an ongoing process. But at this point in time, I think it's better than it has been in the past, but there is a lot more room for improvement in the future. So it's always that continuum of perfection. Okay, so you might notice as the weight gets heavier, with my self lift off, I'm actually lifting my butt off of the bench in order to bring the barbell down into position. This is something I've been working on just to get used to the pattern, but I've noticed it's helped a lot. Because I am doing a self lift off, I don't have someone to help spot the bench press. So with that in mind, when you do lift the butt up, you do change the distance you have to lift the bar. So it makes it a little easier, and it shifts when you drop the butt down to the bench. It actually helps bring the barbell into position over the chest. So might want to try that. I would practice it off with lighter weights before you start doing it for heavier weights, just because there is a balance and a timing issue there. But something to keep in mind, something to try out if you are having to lift alone without a spotter. So 275 coming up just well. No real shoulder pain now. It's really a non-issue at this point, so I'm just going to keep pressing forward and pushing as hard as I can within reason. The only thing I have modified is the longer warm-ups. So by that I mean I'm actually adding in a few more reps and sets at the lighter weights rather than the heavier weights, and taking slightly smaller jumps up that I normally would want to. So that's one of the few adjustments I have made, and I think I'm going to stick with that. So it does mean workout sessions take a little longer, but I think it's better to get the blood flowing and kind of grease the joint, as it were, with movement. Okay, so we just got done with 285 for a single. You'll notice here with the setup, I'm actually putting the wrist wraps on before the set, so I put them on a little tighter there. I wouldn't be able to keep them on for the in-between set break periods, so I'll take them on and off and put the belt on and off in between sets, just because we're at the point now where I want to get a little bit of extra tightness and a little bit of extra security in the wrist joints. You'll notice that I do lower the weight really slowly. Well, it feels like it's really slow. And that's just personal preference, I guess is the term to use. But for me, I can't really lower the weight faster without it feeling like it's going out of control. It's like a battle, I don't know what it is, but like balance. It feels like I'm not going to have the tightness in the shoulders, stability. So all those things kind of play into a factor where I need to lower the weight really slowly for the first rep. And because we're doing singles, each single's kind of this slow lowering motion. We'll probably see it later on because the template does call for some volume reps later on. So you'll be able to see the difference between the first set and the subsequent reps, because that first rep just has to be super slow. And once that is kind of like out of the way, then I can start speeding up the descent on the reps. But for some reason, that first rep, even if I'm already warmed up like now, it's still the slowest rep out of for that set. All right, so 295 just went up. I think I can go up to 305. Okay, so we just got done with 305 for a single. That's the top set for today. I felt close to it. RPE 8, probably 8.5. So I'm really stoked with that result. So now we're gonna move on to some volume work for the week. So it calls for dropping it. It calls for doing sets of 4, drop by 5%. So I'll do some calculations and we'll see where we get with this. Okay, so we just did our first volume set. We got 285 for 4, and I was probably closer to an RPE 9.5 rather than a 9. So we'll dial it down a little bit. We'll dial it down a little less for the subsequent volume sets. It's calling for more sets of 4, drop by another 5%, and capping that at 2 sets. So provided the first set is an 8, we're either going to get 1 or 2 extra sets out of this. The shoulder is starting to show a little issue, but not so much. I can feel some weird sensation in the bicep, which I'm pretty sure stems from the shoulder, but so far so good. Able to push out the reps. That was a little heavier than that was a fair amount of weight going up for me personally, but if you'll notice, the first rep was a lot slower than the subsequent reps, and that's what I was talking about before, where it's like I'm trying to find my balance on that first one, and then the rest of it kind of falls in line for some reason. Okay, so we're starting off with the pause squats with the SSB. It should be a 2-count pause. I'm not quite sure I'm doing the true 2-second pause, but I am doing the 1,001, 1,002 up. Probably tell I'm not the best at these, mainly because don't have conditioning. That's a common thread you'll see across all of these, all across this series, is my conditioning seems to be the weakest link in the chain here. With the 8 reps and the 2-count pause, it's pretty taxing. I am trying to prevent any swaying back and forth at the bottom, so I remove any momentum that might generate. Ideally, you look like a statue for 2 seconds and you pop back up without any rebound or any extra force. So I think it should help with the sticking point. I do enjoy doing the SSBs with the heeled squat shoe. For some reason, it just feels better than a flat shoe. I might transition over to a flat shoe next time around when I do this, just to mix it up a little bit and to get a little bit more stretch at the bottom of the lift. I don't think there's anything bad about using a heeled squat shoe. It's more personal preference, and again, one of those things where you think about what's long-term best for you and what's going to allow you to drive more weight for longer, and just really what comes down to your personal preference, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's training, not anybody else. So we'll continue with these pause squats. I believe I'm working up to 250. Well, that was last week, so we'll see how 250 feels, and if so, we'll do a couple more reps out with that. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we just got done with 240 for 8. Trying to push a little bit this week, so we're gonna call that RPE 8. So we have another set, final working set at, it's gonna be 250 for 8. Again, it's not really a strength issue, it's more a conditioning issue at this point, I think. But you can see towards the end of this set that I was doing a little bounce at the bottom. So a good thing to be self-aware of while you're doing a movement, especially when it's lightweight. Just kind of try and keep like a mental picture of what you're doing. Kind of think about what you're doing while you're doing it. especially in training when it's sub-maximal weights. That way you can have a critical framework to look back on your performance, as well as you'll have the video documentation to look back at, but always keep a cognizant kind of analysis going of how you're performing as you're performing the movement. Some people may say otherwise. I'm not a sports psychologist or a high-level sports performer, but I've just noticed doing that has helped me correct things along the way, because I can kind of correct things mid-set while still pushing as hard as I possibly can. Something to think about. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't, but it's helped me. So that was a top set, 250 for 8, up at your 9. When I play it, you definitely see some form breakdown. Obviously the key thing with any pause movement is to keep tension throughout the entire movement. That's probably helping with making me out of breath, because I'm holding my breath from the top throughout the 2 second to the 2 count pause, and then all the way to the top, and that's when I get to reset the breath. So the one thing that's helped me a lot with the squats with the SS yoke or the SSB, whichever one you call it, has been to pull the handlebars forward rather than thinking of pushing them up or pulling them down towards you. I've thought of pulling them away from me, and that's helped with the tension and keeping my shoulders in the right position, because I kind of felt I didn't know if I should push or pull, and it was kind of throwing the balance off. But if I notice if I pull forward, if I kind of just flex the triceps away from the body, I found that tension helps push the shoulders into position and put the barbell in a nice stable position where I'm not rocking the weight up or down by pushing or pulling it, depending on how I'm feeling for that day. Okay, so I'm pleased with that result. We did 115 for 14 reps for an AMRAP. Feeling a lot more solid than it has in the past. Focus on that strict form, try to minimize any momentum that I might have. They started to get some layback creeping in there towards the end of the set. And definitely those last 2 reps there were questionable with their form, but I think I got full extension at the top, and I think they count. But that was a good 4-rep increase from last week, so I'm pretty stoked with that. All right, so that about wraps it up for day 2 of week 7 of the Powerbuilding 2 template by Barbell Medicine. I thought it was a pretty good session overall. Took around an hour and 50 minutes. So dialing down a little bit on the rest periods. So I'm thinking I'm improving there. As I said before, week 6 is probably the shortest, so already got a pretty long workout. So next week we're gonna try and dial back the warm-ups and dial back the rest periods to see if we can keep these workout sessions under 2 hours. Something I prefer to do. So let me know what you think about my progress down below in the comment section. Check out the blog, WynnStrength.com, where I put a weekly update of my training, a little bit more up to date than the videos. Check out the Barbell Medicine crew. I'll leave the links below for them. They put out some amazing free resources available, as well as you'll find the digital templates, such as one I'm using today. That's about wraps up day 2. Excited to see day 3 be deadlifts. So we'll see if we can get close to the progress that I've been making on the bench press. So thanks for watching as always. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.